Let's get started. Okay, hopefully you're in the right room. This is Journaling Games. I'm Charles, and we're going to talk about this. You might see a bunch of stuff on here that might look cool. Yes, this is me. As you can see, we're getting started. I'm a game programmer. I've been doing that for over 10 years. I'm also an event organizer and a narrative designer based in New York City. And are we getting audio on the Discord, by the way? That's good. Okay, cool. Just game programmer, event organizer, narrative designer based in New York City. I co-founded 501c3 nonprofit Friendship Garden, as you see in the bottom left. And I ran Unparty at GDC for 4 years in the top left. And yes, and I got my MFA from NYU Game Center, and I've made several games along the way. And I hope you'll have, and I hope you'll have plenty of takeaways from this talk and about how you can help others tell their story from journaling games. But what is that? Just to set the tone here, please go see. You will never be able to experience everything, so please do poetical justice to your soul and simply experience yourself. Albert Camus. So what if, suppose there was a game that's completely personalized with a story that's never been told before, in your own voice, with a protagonist that you identify with 100%. No privacy rights signed away, no cloud saving, minimal carbon emissions, with mostly renewable resources. It can heal trauma, works with a biochemical supercomputer, zero algorithms, boosts reading and writing literacy. We need that. We need that. So what kind of game is this? It sounds like a magical game. You know, what kind of game could beat this? Amazon investing $20 billion in an AI data center in Pennsylvania. This just happened like when I was setting up these slides. And you know, journaling games, boom, boom, this woman writing something on a piece of paper. Look what they need to mimic a fraction of our power. Look at that. So yes, so this is a proposal for journaling games and a framework. This is what we're going to go over. 3 components of a journaling game: history of journaling games, tips for making your own, and the future of journaling games. So this is a little preview of what we're going to go over. So yeah, sound good? Hopefully all that sounds good. Okay, let's keep going. Let me see how we're doing. So we're doing good. So before we get into all the other stuff, let's start with some basic definitions. What are we talking about? Which will be more clear when we see examples after these definitions. But 3 components of a journaling game I've broken down into 3 Ps: personal, prompts, and pro-social. Those 3 Ps: personal, prompts, and pro-social. So what must a journaling game have most of all? First off, something personal, some form of self-expression of a personal nature, most commonly writing. So yeah, must involve writing of a personal nature. Personal equals mine. Mine as in not just belonging to you, but mine as in you're a wealth of experiences that no one else ever had. That's a pun in English. Yeah, like nuggets of knowledge, you can refine them into ingots of wisdom. Little Stardew Valley reference here. IRL crafting. Must be personal, otherwise it's creative fiction. The format is not restricted to writing, drawing, direct, indirect, fiction, nonfiction, digital, pen, or paper. It just must involve something that's created by the player about their personal experiences in the experience. First off, journaling games must have something personal to you for their players. Second off, journaling games must have prompts. They're the next component needed to make it a game. Otherwise, it would just be free writing, and it wouldn't be not an interactive game, and it would be too overwhelming. So in educational theory, prompts are the scaffolding that allows learners to connect from their existing world of knowledge to the next step of thinking on their own. It's like the little push that Dumbo's magic feather gives him to allow him to fly, or Frodo's gardener Samwise Gamgee helps him get to Mount Doom, you know, or maybe not as drastic as that. But anyway, they are questions which invite thinking. They are context or storytelling which entertain, inform, and educate the audience. So as Randy Pausch says, Carnegie Mellon professor who is very influential for me, the questions are always more important than the answers. So These are questions that invite thinking and writing. They provide the context first, and then they give you the question that you're going to write your response with. You got to know the context first before you write the question and answer the question. Good prompts are not too vague, not too specific. They invite wonder. They invite open-minded rather than closed-minded thinking. They are aware of their framing. That's very important because there's no such thing as unbiased framing. Just like framing things a certain way is going to set up your audience for answering a certain way. So yeah, be aware of your biases. It requires an awareness of the audience, reading the room. Speaking of which, how's everyone doing today? Everyone doing good? Everyone doing good? Everyone having a good time? Okay, good. That's good reading the room. All right, good example. So when they work right, journaling games can be inspiring. They're not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. And that's by Plutarch, who's ancient Greek philosopher, which I don't know much about, but he sounds smart. So it's good to have his quote there. So yeah. Yeah. And then lastly, journaling games must respect player health, well-being, agency, and privacy. As a general rule for journaling games and in life too, the closer you are to Mr. Rogers, the more you're on the right track. So pro-social equals good. Being of high integrity and holding yourself to a high moral standard is paramount, especially if you want to build trust with your players, because otherwise they won't want to share anything. I experienced that immediately with my game Reflections at Sunset, which I'll talk more about later, where in early prototypes of the game, players would just answer with joke answers because they didn't feel like they could trust me. And also like the tone wasn't there and other things, but yeah, they just didn't feel like they could trust me. And with proper prompting and setting and pen and paper writing, I built trust with players and they felt like, they felt comfortable sharing with my game and with me. And as we're seeing with lots of community-based companies, like as we're seeing an example here, if you lose people's trust, then you kind of don't have a platform. So here's an example with Mark Zuckerberg, spying on people and stuff like that. So all that. So yeah, player trust is paramount. You have to respect that, especially with journaling games, because otherwise people aren't going to engage with it. So we got into some basic definitions. Let's look at some examples of journaling games in history based on like these rough definitions that I'm proposing here in this framework. So this takes us from the 1960s to 2025. So if you want to go even before games, there's the field of journaling itself, which has probably existed for as long as writing, but has gone through many different phases and reached our modern era. And maybe we'll just kind of talk about where it is in the modern era now. On the left, we have journaling prompt books, which are popular gifts in the stationery section of bookstores as an alternative to social media. See the term dopamine detox for reference. This is like, what is this? 500 journal prompts. That's a lot of journal prompts in case you really need to detox. Journaling techniques, as we're seeing in the middle, are a form of domestic labor, which has evolved to have knowledge sharing on social media like Instagram and Pinterest. It also intersects with performativity and capitalism, like pretty much everything in our society nowadays. And that can range from like short form bullet journaling to like more long form literary journaling and that kind of thing. And then on the right, we have narrative therapy. These can be in books. And these books use journaling prompts as part of their therapeutic practice and are more on the clinical side. So you might even say there's some of the more OG games for change, as it were. Got some chuckles in the audience. This is very proud. Okay, two notes, psychotherapy is also a very young field that has grown in parallel to game design, as we'll see on the next slide. Going to 1966, we have Eliza by Joseph Weizenbaum. It's an early form of chat software based on Rogerian psychotherapy. Now, keep in mind, Rogerian psychotherapy began in the 1940s. So about at this point in time, like psychotherapy is about as old as gaming and computation. And how does it work? By entering open-ended text into a terminal, Eliza responds based on a randomized series of stock responses that may or may not reference your text and invite more dialogue. It's also a precursor to chat software as we know it now, and it's more specifically geared towards sharing personal thoughts. Honestly, you can play something like this, and it does like 50-60% of the work that something like ChatGPT does with just a few lines of code gets you most of the way there. Just as long as you answer in a affirmative way that just says, oh, you have such good ideas. Let me hear more about like what's going on in your life. Oh, that really, tell me more about that. How do you feel? How does that make you feel? And just sometimes just having that, it just gives people something they need. So hopefully we can have more of that outside of like this kind of technology and stuff, and ChatGPT and stuff like that. But anyway, jumping ahead in time, we're going to indie zine makers in the 2000s to 2010s. That opened up a flood of indie authoring tools that could be considered journaling game tool sets or zine game makers such as Twine and Bitsy. Authoring software was more like a creative tool set rather than a journaling game per se, but invited a lot of zine-style game creations that could function as journals for the creators. There were likely other movements between Eliza and here, but games were kind of largely a AAA affair with different movements sprinkled in. There might be more work to be explored in like the different movements in HyperCard, RPG Maker, Flash, ClickTeam Fusion, and Game Maker, but this will require much more scholarship to look into, and it's definitely outside of the scope of this talk today. So yeah, it's definitely worth looking into, and yeah, maybe check out some of these books too. Let me just get some water here. Pause. So some of you might recognize this, Kind Words and Kind Words 2, 2019, 2024, Pop Cannibal. Jumping forward a bit more, Kind Words is a community-based indie letter sharing game. You read and write letters from strangers in the community while sitting in a room listening to lo-fi hip-hop beats. Very much vibes, as it were. Somehow, through really polished community moderation, it works really well. It has broad international appeal as well. The talk at last year's NarraScope was really good. I'd highly recommend that if you can check it out. And yeah, a precursor interestingly enough, there's a precursor by the same creator, Pop Cannibal, Elegy for a Dead World, which earned an IGF Nuovo honorable mention in 2014. So yeah, I think that's worth checking out as well. That was like less based around this, but yeah, it's worth checking out. And then with journaling games, every time I mention journaling games to people, they mention the TTRPG space, the tabletop role-playing game space on journaling games. It's an incredibly active scene. It's also kind of like out of my wheelhouse, and I've had like kind of a peripheral kind of exposure to it, but it's kind of a struggle for me to even play these more often nowadays. But honestly, it's such a topic, such a scene, and a topic worthy of its own slide that like I'm just gonna give a few starting points to look at here. But yeah, on the top left we have the Quiet Year, creative collaborative map game where you explore the remains of a civilization after a collapse. And then on the bottom left we have 1,000-Year-Old Vampire, which explores the memories of an immortal vampire's life through centuries. And then we have this on the right here, which is someone that was actually next to me at Magfest this past year. This is Chris from Junk Food Games. He does lots of great stuff. And yeah, check him out on Blue Sky Junk Food Games. It's like a lot of good stuff there. So yeah. But after that, we've seen some examples. We'd have some definitions. Let's discuss some of my personal experiences with the design of journaling games and what takeaways you might have from that. So Reflections at Sunset was started at Global Game Jam 2015 and started off as a massively branching choice-based Twine game. And over 2 years of development, I honed the choices. And about a year into development, I introduced a pen and paper journaling mechanic. And informed by my journaling practices that I had since I was in high school. Players start by viewing the sights and sounds of the sunset and make choices based on where their thoughts lead them until they write a letter to a loved one. One of my first questions I would get from public playtesters was, how long does this take? And I said, oh, a session could take 10 minutes. They would jump in and say, sure, this sounds great. Although secretly it can take like 15 to 20, 30 minutes. But they don't mind once they're in there, so it's all good. Yeah, I also did note that the game had more of an impact in terms of pacing, where there would be a minimum of 3 big choices to make. So like as you see in this graph here, let me see, do you see my mouse? See, yeah, if you see this graph here, you go down from the top and then make your way down here in this massively branching tree. So if you have at least 3 major nodes with 3 major decisions, that builds like a kind of like escalating tension in the story and in your personal story even. So I think that was something that kind of that was something that really was important to the experience, and I made sure to have at least 3 to 4 key dilemmas traversed in all paths of a playthrough. For some players, they're just not into reading. I was okay with that. You know, gamers, whatever. Yeah, fine. Yeah, this was my first big release, and people really liked it, especially the handwritten aspect. Some gamers said they hadn't picked up a pen to write something in years. So I think for that novelty alone, I think that got some attention. So as you're seeing, I have some of that writing here in the bottom right. So yeah. And yeah, in my opening prompts, this is how the game starts. I introduce myself and tell players about the kind of experience they're about to embark on, some rules, that they will need a pen and paper, common household items. I mentioned that I shall respect their privacy, no data collection is going to be done, and that they should respect their own privacy too. This is all to create a comfortable environment for them to express their feelings. And yeah, that's the trust that we're trying to build with the players in order for them to have the experience that I'm intending for them. And yeah, also I added the visual effects for the text. And also on the opening screen, you start to hear the soundtrack composed by my friend, Ben Andre, who I'm still in touch with to this day. He's a good guy. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's funny. Yeah. Yeah, and then here's an example of a choice in the game and the conclusion of the game. So like you're just looking at the sunset, you say, what do you look at? The clouds. What do the clouds make you think of? They're really high. Clouds that are really hard to change. Then how long can I accept what I cannot change? How long do I hang on to the belief that I must suffer? Can this be a moment of change? Perhaps it can, perhaps not. And then you dive into that further from there. So that's kind of how the game kind of flows. It happens about 3 times or so. Yeah, and then here's some exhibitions that I had for it at Playcrafting and Different Games Toronto back in the day. And we had some good feedback. Anecdotally, this may have been one of the few experiences players had where they could truly express themselves in a game or otherwise. So I think I was tapping into something really meaningful here. So people were saying stuff like, it's okay to take a break. It's okay to ask for help. You know, people are talking about their thoughts about life being unfairly short, but it's what allows them to fully enjoy the life that they do have. Someone thought about their grandma, and yeah, it was this made me feel like I was doing something really meaningful here. And I honestly should show this game more often, but I don't. Yeah. Next up is Confessions of an NPC. Is my next Twine game exploring different topics through sci-fi fantasy characters facing moral dilemmas surrounding socio-political issues. Yeah, a lot of big words there. Building off of journaling games from Reflections and my interest in choice-based dilemmas from Telltale's Walking Dead, I wanted to explore fictional storytelling. Yeah, it's from 2018. I wanted to explore fictional storytelling as a prompt. In Confessions, players interview 6 characters, hear their stories, and see them faced with moral dilemmas. You're asked, what would you have done? But you don't change the outcome. So that's interesting there. It's the players still feeling something when thinking through their choice of a fictional character, but it still leaves an impact even though they don't change what actually happens. So this is an earlier work of mine. There's plenty of things I do differently, but I learned a lot. And then here are the characters I've written the stories for: the princess, the monster's mother, the moneymaker, the commoner, the historian. This was more of a creative fiction project. These were stories that were a composite of a real world person. How are we doing?
5 minutes.
5 minutes? Okay. Yeah, this was like, yeah. And then I did a bunch of other things, started some organizations, ran some parties, got a master's degree from NYU, survived a pandemic. I was hospitalized, but now I'm okay. I'm working on Memoir Games, yay! And then in the Zine game collection, players write and draw to reflect on their lives, and yeah, it's been great. And then I also am working on a memoir. It's good. It's like 70,000 words, 181 pages. It's me at an open mic. But yeah, tips for making your own journaling game. What we'll discuss: pain, fantasy, and joy. I guess we are in the business of healing intergenerational trauma. Oh boy. So be a gracious receiver to the audience. Make them feel safe. Ease into the themes with them until they're ready to process things. If you're demoing in a live setting, take them out of the public setting and give them some privacy, which I did with Reflections at Sunset. I literally had players step into the booth behind the table to play the game. And it was very important to have that one-to-one connection with the audience. Yeah. And in fantasy, tell the truth, but tell it slant. Success in circuit lies. The truth must dazzle gradually, or every man be blind. Emily Dickinson. If you want to tell people the truth, make them laugh. Otherwise, they'll kill you. Oscar Wilde. Holy crap, Lois, things got way too real. Bleak topics can be made more easier to process with fantasy princesses and laser blasters. That's the quick summary of this slide. So you got to balance that with research, sensitivity, nuance, player feedback until you get the combination really just right. And then this fantasy can actually be something that helps them process things that might be too hard to process on their own and stuff. And it's like balancing ingredients in a recipe and making for nice cooking, which my partner is really the better cook between us, but maybe I should be letting her say more in this talk, to be honest. But anyway, joy is important, and journaling games are both a reflection of your values to your audience and your audience to themselves. It could be an expression of the best of both of your aspirations. Good things like journaling games should be good. Sure, there's pain in life, there's hatred, there's suffering, sometimes for no reason at all. But if you keep looking, it can be a beautiful world to live in, to marvel in, to feel in awe of, to feel love amongst its people and creatures and things. There's plenty to live for in this world, forever long we're here for. And then there's like some stuff about the future of journaling games. How are we doing on time?
3 minutes.
3 minutes? Yeah, we can do it. So some brief words on the future of journaling games. Computers are a bicycle for the mind. That would make us rushing into AI more like a 300-mile-per-hour maglev train. Sometimes when we get on a train, we accidentally get on the wrong one. And we don't know where it's taking us, and we can't do anything until we get off at the next stop. Which begs the question, where did we begin? We start off as zygotes, then a bunch of stuff happens, ask your parents, then we become bodies and bones and brains. I mentioned that computers have nothing on brains, the OG bioorganic supercomputer, and this is actually true that we have 100 trillion synapses in our brains, the average human brain, and there's about 4.6 bits of information per synapse. So that equals 57 terabytes of information. And DeepSeek, in their biggest model that I saw, had only 404 gigabytes. So we are better than AI. So take that. All right. And there's no neural mind reading biometric data devices yet. So only you can tell your story. Till then, we're on a train running on a track shaped by our memories, hopes, and dreams and nightmares. And algorithms and media are already telling us what to think and what to feel. So if we could take control of our media, our writing, our memories, our games, we'll be altering the course of our lives, and through that, maybe the course of history itself. Machines should work, people should think. Machines should work, people should groove. Anyway, in any future that you may have, journaling games or not, I hope your world is shaped by wisdom, compassion, empathy, and self-knowledge. I mentioned being hospitalized really quickly before, but I will say my creative work has been helping me work through my healing. I hope in your small sliver of the universe, wherever you may be, that the works you create, interactive or non-interactive, public or private, can help shape your own destiny and help you see how this world can be a wonderful world. And that's us, the pale blue dot there. All right, that's me, yeah. Six minutes for questions? Okay, 6 minutes for questions. Okay, we have a question back there. Okay. All right, yeah. First you, then you, in the front.
Yeah, so this is, I guess, about a prompt thing. I was thinking about whether you're starting with the invitation to journal to have this kind of self-reflexive, thing that the player sort of whatever, I guess imposes, versus like deferring that or delaying it until maybe they're already invested in like the fiction or, some other way that having get over their maybe initial like standoffishness or like non-investment. Like,
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking like, wait, so if I'm interpreting that correctly, is it better to like make sure that journaling that's part of the game foreground that's going to be part of the game up front versus like surprise them with it or like kind of after they get invested into the game first?
Yeah, I'm wondering about the considerations of those, those two options. Like,
I mean, in my experience with my games have been pretty short typically, so I like to foreground it. And with that foregrounding, like it's also just feels appropriate in that it's like it feels like a consent thing too, because it's like some people don't feel open to entering that space like as a surprise or something like that. So if you like say from the beginning, hey, this is gonna have this in the game, then like they know to be ready for it because they might not be ready to enter a personal experience, sharing their personal thoughts and feelings. But I don't know, this has typically been in short form games, so I don't know what it might be like in like a long form, like I don't know, like 60-hour AAA. I don't know, like that's like kind of unthinkable to me. Too big to consider for me at this point. So, yeah. Okay, you got a question here?
What are your preferences for like physical notebooks?
Is
As far as like lined, not lined, graph paper, and does that at all affect your designing?
Okay, the question was about preferences on notebooks, graphed and lined, not lined. Is this in regards to games or just in personal preference in terms of journaling in general? Like,
Well, it's both.
both, okay.
Because you said you have a long history with journaling, right? So I'm guessing.
That's right, yeah.
Every time you buy a notebook, you buy a specific type of notebook, or maybe like field we all have. And when you're creating journaling, interactive journaling in a game, are you recreating your preferred style of notebook or?
I mean, like, every, the medium is the message, right? Like it already sets up a framing for like what's going to be experienced. Like if you have graphs, it's going to start to affect like, oh, should I like do graphs or something like that, do images? If it's like acid-free paper, it's going to set up a tone. If it's like, in one of my previous games, like I had like a big kind of like tome, like some of these papers were from like tome like things that I got from like a independent market, and that felt like it shaped the tone of things too. It was like someone hand bound it and stuff like that. So I think that affects the tone of things a lot, but it probably would depend on like what kind of experience you're going for and what you're trying to make, and also for yourself at a given moment. And I'm going through different moments and stuff, and it really depends on my mood for my personal preferences too. So yeah.
We have about 2 minutes left, so if you have any final statement you want to make.
We are pushing everything back 15 minutes, so we can actually use 15 more minutes.
Oh, we good.
You have a 30-minute slot, so, and 30 minutes everyone.
Yeah.
I don't know. How does this work?
Switch it up.
So if you have anything else you want to say or wrap up.
Just like find me here. But like, we seem like we had another question somewhere in the back.
Games. Do you read the submissions that people like create?
That's a good question. Maybe I didn't make that clear. So some of these games I allow people to share if they want to what they wrote, but I also leave it completely up to them whether or not they want to share or not. And like sometimes people are like, oh, I want to leave it behind, and like they don't want to keep it with them. And some people are like, oh, I don't want anyone to see this at all, and like this should not exist and it should burn as soon as I wrote it and stuff like that. So I just leave that up to the players what they want to do. It kind of like hurts like social media sharing and stuff, admittedly, because it's like it can't go viral that way. But I don't know, I'm okay with that. It's just the kind of space I want to occupy and decentralize and all that. So yeah, just decentralize all our media and sharing and stuff. Cool. Thank you for coming, everyone.